Hi everyone. This isn't going to really be just a table talk. I wanted to start off with a bit of a preamble, and then right after this, I'm going to hopefully have some flight video where I'm going to hopefully demonstrate what I'm going to talk about in this part of the video. So I've been having some discussion with one of my followers who's just kind of new, getting into the hobby, and some things that you can practice if you have a simulator. Some great basic drills to practice on the simulator first, and then when you get to the field, just back those up, galvanize those with time in the air. And a lot of it has to do with just learning how to do good basic turns and learning the orientation of your plane and which way you need to move the stick to make the plane turn the way that you want to turn. I was asked the question, do I think about, when I make my turns, do I think about being in the plane or outside of the plane, looking at the plane? And my first response was I don't really think about it too much. I fly mode 2, so my roll and pitch are on the right stick. I just, tend to remember that if I want the plane to turn left, I push the stick to the left. If I want it to turn right, I push the stick to the right, and obviously, pull some elevator. So I guess realistically, I'm probably assuming or thinking that I'm in the cockpit of the plane. And it takes a while, because as you're in certain orientations, going away from yourself, sideways, coming towards yourself, you got a lot of things to think about, and you're probably, especially when you're learning, you're just maybe in shock that your plane is up in the sky and flying. So I want to start off just talking about, before I demonstrate them, talk about some basic drills that you can do. Because I'm a firm believer, and I'm speak from personal experience, is I know it can be boring, but if you can really work on getting good smooth turns, good smooth level turns, flying line of sight, going in all different directions with the plane in all different orientations to you, that is going to help build such a good foundation so that, as you progress, then you can start getting into the loops and the rolls and the other things. I know the temptation is there, and this is why I say that. You get airborne in your second or third flight, you think, oh yeah, man, I'm ready to join the Blue Angels or the Snowbirds or something, and the next thing you're trying to do loops and rolls, and you still really haven't mastered turning your plane smoothly and effectively. So I think it's really important if you can build that foundation and just force yourself to focus on doing some basic turns. And you don't have to do these for like 50 flights, but I still go out sometimes and I think, okay, well, let's do this exercise, and I'll do some figure eights, I'll do some zigzags, and just really try and focus on keeping that turn level, not having the plane rising and falling, or going into a turn and then snapping it around. So probably when you first get flying, and I'll talk about this because you may hear people refer to this in aviation. This is your basic circuit at an airfield, and it would be whether you're airplane is doing an instrument flight rules IFR approach or just a standard VFR circuit. The legs are pretty much referred to the same. So let's say this is our imaginary runway, and you may not have a runway where you fly like I do, but you can pretend in your mind that you've got a runway. So, and we don't normally, as park jet pilots, we hand launch our planes. We might not necessarily take off and go into this perfect rectangular circuit, and lots of times if you watch my circuits, mine are maybe just a continuous turn. But anyway, so you launch it, and off the end of the runway you're in the upwind leg, then you turn crosswind. The wind is blowing this way in relation to this piece of paper. You turn crosswind, now you're downwind, and then you turn base leg, and then final, and then you would come in and land, do a touch and go, whatever. Now these, if you're going the other way, upwind and final and crosswind and base are reversed. Downwind remains the same because you're still going to be going downwind. So These are things that you can practice, you know, because you're essentially just doing 90-degree turns or a form of 90-degree turns or just an extended turn. You know, when you're first flying, get your plane up, you know, up above any of the trees and keep it, you know, close enough to you that you can see it and control it. You know, don't, you know, if you can, I mean, maybe for your maiden flight, don't worry about this too much. Just fly it and then, you know, bring it in and land it in one piece and feel the, you know, that feeling of success that you've had. But then, you know, as you're moving on in flights, you know, do a couple going this way, and then, you know, you can do like a dumbbell turn down here, and then come back and go the other way. I mean, obviously, always set yourself up so that you're landing into the wind. But then this way, you know, if you reverse course, now you're going to see the airplane from a different orientation rather than, you know, you're constantly making right turns or constantly making left turns. That way in a flight you can maximize your training value, I guess, if you want. Okay, so that's a basic circuit. So you can do those. That's probably the, you know, the simplest way, just, you know, kind of flowing around like a racetrack pattern. But, you know, after your first couple flights, when you're starting to feel like you're getting you know, a reasonable handle on your plane, then try and reverse that direction. But again, remembering always land into wind, especially when you're first learning, because if you try and land with a tailwind, it can get really, really tricky, especially with a park jet. If you're flying elevons only, you can start to really, as your plane slows down, you can start to lose control authority, and your plane might go for a long time as it's being pushed by the wind. Okay, another fairly simple one that I used a lot when I was practicing is the zigzag. So, you know, this is your runway, and, you know, you're standing here beside the runway, and, you know, start off, you know, you can enter it however you want, coming towards yourself, and then sort of do like a zigzag. So these turns are primarily like a 90-degree turn. You know, you're turning 90 degrees, boom, roll out, fly, and do that. And then again, you know, do this, and then you can do like a dumbbell out this way, and then, you know, maybe re-enter sort of here, you know, and you may, you know, this obviously is a bit of an exaggeration, you may be able to get several depending on the length of your airfield, but again, do it so that you have a good grasp on the orientation of the plane as you see it going, and then, you know, do a couple one way, get out of it, you know, do a basic circuit or whatever, and then enter back into it going the other way, so that you see the airplane from different angles. And then one of the final ones, and this might be a little bit more challenging because now you're starting to tighten things up a little bit more, is to do a figure eight. And I talked about this in a video as well. I talked about many of these things in a video that I did called the top 10 beginner mistakes I made as a park jet pilot. So I'm going to link that down below if you haven't seen that before. Believe me, it took me a long time to distill it just down to 10. I've made many more than that. But this is, you know, one of those things that you can practice, especially when you're learning. So again, you know, you enter into it, and, you know, I tend to use it, you know, this is me standing beside the runway. I tend to try and use the center point here where I do my turns, or my crossing point. So I'm coming up here, and then I'm doing a big extended turn around here to the left, coming back through center. Now I'm going to the right. You know, again, do that maybe a couple of times, and then, you know, you can continue straight ahead, do a bit of a dumbbell, and then re-enter it back this way, and do a couple more that way. You know, and in the space of a flight, as you're practicing these things, you know, you can do a combination of several of them. You know, do a couple basic circuits, especially if you're just learning and it's your first flight. Do a couple basic circuits, sort of get warmed up, and then maybe a zigzag or two, then maybe some figure eights, and then, you know, continue on doing something else. But like I said, these are things, especially if I'm evaluating a plane, or, you know, I need to you know, get out of doing my you know, high speed low drag passes. You know, I'll do some of these figure eights, and you know, just to focus. You know, looking again, I'm looking sideways at the plane, and when I turn it, I want to make sure, you know, that I'm not dropping my nose, or I'm letting it come. I want my turn to be nice and smooth and uniform. I don't want to, you know, go into it and, you know, be daydreaming and then yank it around, or, you know, yank into it first, and now I'm, you know, so hopefully you get the picture. I want to try and focus on it being a nice, smooth turn. I mean, obviously your time will come that you can yank and bank and pretend that you're Maverick and Top Gun, and you know, you're out there killing MiGs. But you know, these, believe me when I tell you, if you work hard at mastering these basic skills that hopefully I'm going to be able to demonstrate in the upcoming flight video portion, it's going to pay big dividends for you long term. So anyway, so like I said, I just wanted to do this kind of you know, when we're sitting here in a low speed 0G environment before we get out to the field. So hopefully that's been helpful. So yeah, so upcoming is the flight portion. We'll talk to you soon. Hi folks, so I'm going to try and demonstrate the some of the turn drills or turn exercises that you can do, you know, to work on nice smooth turns, as I talked about in the first portion of the video. So I've tamed down my power setup a little bit here on my SU-30, so hopefully things won't happen too fast. So here we go. So we're kind of launching obviously across the circuit. So we'll go into a left hand, just a regular circuit here. You know, I'm going to continue my turns because I'm sort of surrounded by trees here. Mine will probably look more like an oval. But you know, this is a good way, especially when you're first learning. Just get a couple of circuits under your belt, get warmed up, get used to the orientation of your plane. So now I'm just going to climb up and do like a dumbbell turn just to reverse direction. One thing you want to be sure of when you're first starting is don't fly on top of yourself, but don't let your airplane get too far away from you, because you know, these are fairly small park jets and they can be, you know, they can move pretty quick. And if you get too far away from yourself, it's very, very easy to lose orientation. So I'm climbing up a little bit there just so you can see the plane. So there would be a right-hand circuit. So again, you can reverse, you know, go back downwind to a left-hand circuit. The other thing with these circuits is, you know, you can practice your landing approaches, you know, sort of see what your plane does as you chop the power, sort of where to chop the power. So now we're going to set up and I'm going to try and do the zigzag. It's a little tougher here with these trees all around me, but okay, so we'll enter, go out, turn about 90 degrees. Okay, so we're just trying to present the airplane to ourselves in whoops, that was not a good turn, in several different angles, you know, side on and away from us. So then we can come back and zigzag the other way. So I wasn't doing as good a job as I should have been doing there, managing my speed in those turns. One of the things you have to remember as you're turning a plane is you do naturally bleed off energy. So now we're going to go into just some big wide figure eights. You know, these are probably easiest when you're getting started. Just keeping nice and smooth, you know, just figuring out, you know, how you need to move the stick. As you gain more experience flying and more experience with the plane, you know, you can adjust your throws and your expo to, you know, to make sure that, you know, you don't need to keep slamming the stick around as you're in the turn. So we'll do one more figure eight going this way. Okay, then we'll just sort of climb out, exit out, sort of dumbbell around and reverse that figure eight. So now a left-hand turn to my right. And then a right-hand turn down there. So then, you know, and then as you gain experience, we'll take the speed up a little bit. You know, you can start to tighten those up. And now you're pretty much almost constantly in a turn, but you're changing direction, you know, which presents you different views of the plane, forces you to anticipate. You know, when you're tightening up those figure eights, you might want to keep the speed up a little bit. See, I got too aggressive in that turn. You notice how the nose dropped? So I'm going to... Yeah, so you can just play around, you know, do a figure eight. Spill out of that. You know, go into a bit of a zigzag. Basically, with these is you're doing two things. You're working on your throttle management, you know, your stick management, and then we can spill out of that. We'll go into a regular left-hand circuit. You know, speed management is important. As you've seen a couple of times here, I've buffooned my turns and been too slow. It's especially with an elevons only airplane. Sometimes what you might need to do if you're worried about your nose dropping is pull the nose up just a little bit and then go into your turn so that you've bought yourself some altitude before you go into the turn. And then again, we can dumbbell out of that sort of, and then do the circuit the other way. So as you get experience when you're doing these drills, you know, you'll find, like, I pretty much just have the throttle pinned right now. You know, I'm not playing around with it too much. So we'll go into a big wide figure 8. So just trying to focus to stay as smooth as I can on the sticks. Okay, there's my alarm. So we'll just sort of continue this end of the figure 8 around, roll final, chop the power, you know, and you're just trying to hold a little bit of up elevator there. If you've got your plane balanced right when you're coming into land, it should just sort of adapt its own sort of own natural sink rate without, you know, if you're nose heavy or tail heavy, you know, you'll notice that a lot as you chop the speed. Either your nose will pop or it'll drop. So, you know, you really want to work hard on, you know, getting that. And it doesn't, you know, it doesn't come right away. Sometimes, depending on the plane, it could take 10 or 12 flights to get it sorted out. Yeah, so hopefully, you know, I even included a few buffoonerous moves there. So yeah, you know, speed management. Try and stay nice and smooth on the sticks as much as you can. Give yourself lots of space. Obviously, I'm a bit challenged here because I've got trees all around me here. But, you know, give yourself lots of space, but then don't get too far away from yourself because, you know, even now, you know, depending on the sun, whatever, if I get too far away from myself, I still scare myself once in a while and lose orientation on my plane. So hopefully you saw there, you know, we saw the plane in several different presentations, you know, going away from us, coming towards us, at an angle, that sort of stuff. So, you know, I think if you, especially as you're starting off, if you practice those turns and work hard to get them smooth so that you build your confidence, then a lot of stuff is going to happen because, you know, that's one thing you just have no choice but to do a lot of when you're flying RC, because you have to keep your plane close to you, and depending on your field, you know, you have no choice. So anyway, I hope that that's been helpful to you. As I said in the first part of the video, these are great things to practice in a simulator first, you know, to kind of get that muscle memory built, and then come out here and at the field and try it out. And if you kind of scare yourself, just get out of whatever you're doing. If you're trying to tighten up your figure 8 and it's, you know, you're starting to feel yourself panic, just abort it and, you know, go into a nice lazy circuit. Let your heart rate calm down, let your nerves calm down, and then go again. I mean, you're not trying to. There's no race here. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Blue sky, calm winds to everyone. Fortunately, sun's not as bad today as it has been recently. Park jet noise, the other sound of freedom, baby. Take care.